Hello, welcome to the video aid for the baby flower and leaf pixie. Here they are. This is the flower version right here. Here's what she look like, or he, and this is what this one looks like. It's got the crazy leaves. So I just want to talk real quick. In this video, I'm simply going to be going over through kind of main parts in the pattern. I'm not going to work through the whole pattern. It's going to be a lot of different clips working along different sections of the pattern. So you're still going to have to follow the pattern, but if maybe you get stuck on something, then you can watch the video aid just to kind of give you a little bit of a different visual, maybe something that may be hard to see in pictures might be easier to see in video as I talk it through. Quick disclaimer, I am left-handed. I am not going to be flipping this video for you, so maybe if you get confused, maybe it's not a good idea to watch the video, but I'm going to keep everything left-handed. If for any reason there is a discrepancy between the way that a left-handed and a right-handed person would work, which I believe in this pattern there is no difference other than simple fact that I'm going to be working backwards from you. So I'm working this way instead of this way. But there is no discrepancies in this pattern. Everything for right-handed and left-handed people is going to be worked exactly the same. So that was just the quick intro, if you can call it quick. But I will be working with this is Sweet Snuggles Light and Home Slim. This is Sweet Snuggles Light. These two are Home Slim. They're the same thickness, and I've already pre-made a blanket one, but I will be going over the leafy details on this one. So this video will have the flower girl, the leafy boy, or sorry, I shouldn't call it flower girl, leafy boy, just the flower pixie and the leafy pixie, and it's going to have the dumpling baby mod. So I'm gonna start working. The beginning is going to be the same for all three. Okay, so let's get started. We're gonna make the arm first. I'm probably not gonna show you how to do the main arm, but I wanted to show you how to start out. If you like doing the magic ring, obviously you can do the magic ring. Magic ring is a lot easier to do in blankets, in yarns like blanket yarn or waist weight yarn. But when you have like the bloom yarn or the perfect chunky yarn or the home slims, you know, the sweet snuggles, the yarns that just snap and fall apart when you try to tighten them, I find it easier to start with a chain 2 instead of a magic ring. I'm gonna be super honest, I don't use the magic ring at all. But what I'm going to do to reinforce this, because if I try to pull this after I have the 6, I will most likely snap it. So I'm just gonna grab a small strand of worsted weight yarn, and I'm going to hold it with that chain 1. So as I insert my hook, I gotta make sure that I'm going under that worsted weight yarn. I personally yarn under, so I'm going to yarn under again, and I'm going to make my 6 single crochets. I gotta make sure that I'm going through both the worsted weight yarn and the you know, softer yarn. So I did 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm not gonna tighten it yet, but I'm going to go ahead and start on round 2, which is the increases in each stitch around. So at this point, I'm not working over the worsted, just like those initial first 6 stitches. All right, so I am pass round 2. So at this point, what I'm going to do is just, I'm really gonna pull this tight. So I'm just gonna knot it and pull, and that's gonna close my beginning circle, the hole at the beginning. And then I'm going to double knot it and double knot it again. I have destructive children, so I gotta make sure everything is super tight. Oopsie. It's crazy because the yarn holds very well once it's in a plushie, but getting into that plushie sometimes is really hard. So that's how I start my work. You're gonna start this way if you want to. If you have a different way of doing it, you can do it your way, just the way that I do it. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this arm, and then I'll show you how to do row 8. We'll come back for row 8. I did also want to point out I am using a 6.5 millimeter for this yarn, but everybody's different. Every yarn is different. Even yarns that are the same brand in different colors will be different. So keep that in mind when you're doing your work. You gotta keep in mind the yarn that you're using and the crochet tension that you are most comfortable with, and adjust your crochet hook size depending on what works best for you. So I am a significantly tight crocheter, so for me a 6.5 works for this yarn. I think most people are comfortable with a 5.5, so just keep that in mind. I do always write what I personally use on my patterns, but you don't have to go by that. I do have the gauge swatch, but that's only for the worsted weight yarn, so keep that in mind. Yeah, now I'm mumbling, so I'll meet you guys right back. So I just got done working the 7th round of the arm, and now we're going to work on row 8. So when you're working on a round, you're working on a circle. Whether it's continuous or it's joined circle, you're going in a circle. However, when you are working on a row, you usually have a chain 1 turn. So we're gonna turn this round into a row, and by doing that we're going to insert our hook into the 1st stitch and the 8th stitch, which is our very last stitch. Now we're gonna insert our hook onto our 2nd stitch and our 7th stitch back here. Insert your hook into the 3rd stitch and the, what's that, 6th stitch, and then through 4, which is right here, and right behind it 5, and there we go. And that is now a row. We don't have to chain 1 and turn because that's the end of it. So usually when I fasten off, I'm going to do a chain. I'm gonna cut my yarn and I'm gonna pull it tight. It doesn't have to be an extremely long tail because we're not sewing it on. It is a completely no-sew pattern, for the exception of the baby dumpling. The baby dumpling does have a little bit of sewing, but the Pixie does not. So we're going to crochet this on, but because of this yarn, I like to work around it to tie it off, just so I make sure that I secure it. So I do the chain 1, so I know that this last stitch is not gonna move anyway, in any way, and then I'm going to pull through and keep that tight. So I am going to start on the other arm, and I'll meet you back to do the legs. So I finished both legs. I had an oopsie on this one. I tightened it too early and I couldn't pull the yarn all the way through, so it shed a little bit. So we'll be a little bit more gentle with this leg, but it should be okay. and then this is the second leg. Now on the pattern I do specify that the joining stitch, the first stitch, right, so when you join you have like a V right there, don't count that as a stitch, and don't count this first stitch where you did the join, or where you joined two. And then I'm gonna mark it on this one. I'm marking it on this just because it's harder to see because it's fluffier yarn. I mean, you know, because it's fluffier yarn, so it's a little bit harder to see your stitches sometimes. You can do that, you don't have to, you know. So for the joining of the legs, we're going to chain 2. Try to not make these extra thick, I'm sorry, tight, because we are going to come back and work through both sides. Look at me forgetting how to do a chain. And now I'm going to grab my other leg, and then I'm going to join to that join stitch. Let me put the marker on the outside. There you go. Now make sure you're not twisting this too much, because then it'll be harder to come back to the chain. And I will tighten that one. So we have 2 chains here, 1 and 2. Oh, sorry. We have 2 chains here, 1 and 2, and yeah. So since we are not counting the first stitch, there's only 11 stitches going around each leg. So keep that in mind. So we're on this leg. I'm not gonna use that joining stitch, that first stitch. I'm sorry that I keep repeating myself. And I'm going to single crochet on the leftover 11 stitches. So let me stitch mark that real quick, because that's my first stitch. And single crochet on the last 10, right? So I did 1, I got 10 more to go. Now I got my chains over here, so I'm going to single crochet on that first available chain, going to single crochet on that next chain, and now I'm gonna single crochet around the 11 stitches left on this leg. So remember, we're not gonna work on that one. That's why I marked them, so you could see them. So we're gonna work on this one, and now we're gonna single crochet 11 all the way around. So 1, and now we've made it to the opposite end of the chain. This is a little bit hard to see. Hold on, that might have been too dark. Okay, so now we're working on the opposite side of the chain. And then 1, and then 2. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these stitch markers because we don't need them anymore. We were just kind of doing it so we could see what was happening. So, ooh. All right, so we worked on 11, 11, 2, and 2, so we should have 26 stitches left, or 26 stitches after this round. Now, depending on the yarn that you're using, or how tight you're crocheting, you may have a hole, which is why I wanted to leave this long strand of yarn, just in case if you have any sort of gap, you can close it up. Now, I didn't have this issue with my worsted weight yarn or my blanket yarn, but I know I did have this issue with the bloom yarn. Oh, this is what I was afraid of. So I wanted to leave a longer tail. You know what? I'm just gonna leave that there. And we're gonna grab some worsted. This is why I like having worsted on hand. So I think my tension is tight, but I'm not sure why I have this issue with some yarns and not with others. But we're just gonna reset it. It's okay. You don't have to frog it, especially now with this yarn. Especially now with this yarn. So we're just gonna work a couple of stitches. We don't want any holes. We don't want any stuffing showing anywhere. So we're just gonna take care of it now while we can. We're just gonna reinforce this. Again, I didn't really have this issue with the other yarns, but so I made sure I added that to the pattern. I didn't really want to go a hook size down further because then I felt like they were going to be too tight. So I'm tying these. Don't worry about your ends because they work as stuffing. I'm going to grab that tail though, just in case. Also tie that one down. It's the reason I chose to do this video with this yarn, which I know isn't the easiest to see. But I'll stuff some onto this one too. Okay, so I wanted to show you that part. Next round, we're just gonna go all the way around, and then we're gonna increase on the belly and work our way up. I'm actually just gonna continue working, and I will meet you on round 12 when we go to attach the arms. So I just got done with round number 11, and we are going to start round number 2, and this is the one where we're going to attach the arms. All right, so we're going to start out with 4 single crochets. And now this is where we're going to attach the arm. So the way that I like to do it is just so I can tie the 2 arms together is I'm going to face my tail towards the tummy. So we're going to attach it to that first available stitch on the arm and the next available stitch of the body. Make sure that you are maintaining a tight tension. You may tend to loosen a little bit because we're working through, what we're working through is a little bit thicker. So you may tend to like loosen your tension a little bit, but we want to keep it tight. So the next available stitch of the arm and the next available stitch of the body. Make sure that you are inserting your hook in the proper stitch because it's very easy to accidentally use a stitch that you've already used previously. So here I am working on that last stitch and the next stitch of the body. Right, so now we're going to work on just the body for the next 6 stitches. So again, we're making sure that we're working on a stitch that we haven't used. Now I like to carry my yarn. That tail, we're going to carry it with us. And we're going to do 1, 2, and by carry I mean we're just going to crochet around it so it stays, so it walks with us, carries with us. 3, I don't know, 5 and 6. Now we want to slightly pull over here to make sure that it's all the way in and tight and it's not going to loosen. Actually, we don't have to do it right now because we're going to do it when we do the other arm. But now with this arm, we want both the tails to meet, so we're going to start on the end with the tail. So insert my hook on that arm, and we're not going to be crocheting over the tails right now. So make sure we keep them out of the way because we're going to tie a couple of knots just to make sure nothing happens. So on the first stitch of the arm, next stitch of body, and we're going to go through that next stitch and next stitch. We're working through them both together to join them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to finish our round with 2 stitches on just the body. So I left my stitch marker down there. That's just, it's the first stitch marker of this specific round. It's just so I can, it was easier to see. You can kind of see that's the first stitch. So you have a line going up, and we know that I ended on the right end. If you've been crocheting for a while, you've probably already do this trick. If you're new to crochet, I do suggest, until you know visually what your stitches are, to make sure that you are moving that stitch marker along with you all the way through. So we're gonna pull a long loop for a second, and we're gonna take care of these arms. And again, we're gonna pull this, make sure that you know, because we don't want this hanging, right? So we want to make sure that's pulled in all the way through, but not too tight. And the same with the other tail. Pull through. You know how this is just kind of hanging there. What we don't want is this tail to just come out with time. Again, if you have rough kids like I do. And we're going to tie these 2 tails together a million times. Maybe not a million times, but a million times. Double knotting. And this is probably an overkill, too many, but yeah. And we're gonna tuck them in. So I am going to work a couple more rounds. And actually, I'll show you right now. We're just gonna lightly stuff it right now. When we're stuffing at this point, I do say to stuff. So what we're worried about the most is to make sure that these legs are properly stuffed. So we want to make sure we're pushing in there all the way down, and we're stuffing them properly. I do make sure that these are stuffed at 100%, because once we go to the thinner part of the body, it'll be harder to reach all the way down to the legs. So we want to make sure that those legs are nice and packed. So they are. Oh, that one needs a little bit more. There we go. I do like the firmness on that. So now we just go, I'm just gonna stuff maybe to 80%, because we're gonna be decreasing to a very small opening, and we don't want to feed a lot of stuffing through there and massage it. So I'm gonna try to get a lot of the stuffing in there. So about 80%, right? This one's pretty good. It's pretty full. It's got a really nice small squish. Oh my God, I'm gonna push it down a little bit more. There we go. Boom. Okay, now I'm gonna continue crocheting, and I'll meet you back at around round 17, and this way we can talk a little bit more about stuffing. So I'll meet you right back. Right, so I made it to round 17. Yes, I made it to round 17, so all the way to the increases. You don't have to work all the way out here. I just like to, because I don't want to stop counting. So I know that from here on, the rounds are gonna be 50, 50, 50, 50. So you know, mindless crochet. So this is a good stopping point for me. So I did all the increases that I needed to, and now we're gonna stuff, and we're gonna stuff, and we're gonna stuff. You don't want to understuff your dolls because then they lose shape. So when you work on building shaping with your pieces, you know, this one doesn't necessarily have as much shaping as other ones that I've done, but I mean, it does have a cute tummy, so we want to make sure that we are stuffing it to make sure that, you know, if the kid's playing with it and they're, you know, squeezing it, it's not gonna end up flat. You see what I mean? I squeezed it, that means it's too soft. There was, I mean, it obviously bounced back a little bit, but the doll got squished. So as we're stuffing, we want to make sure that we're adding bit by bit and then squeeze to test. So I grabbed a big chunk because I feel like it needs a bigger chunk. I was like, oh, it's nowhere near ready. As we get closer to me thinking that it's ready, or me believing that it's ready, then I will add smaller pieces. So there's a belly, and we're gonna squeeze, and it's still kind of not super firm, so we're gonna add a little bit more. So now the other thing to watch out for is as you're stuffing, one of the ways that you know that you're stuffing too much is when your stitches start to like really stretch. So I don't really want to show you. I think I did it with one of my previous ones where I stuffed it so much to where the stitches really stretched. You can kind of see they're a little bit stretched here. I could have probably gone down a hook size. So maybe, so this yarn is not as thick as I thought it was, because I thought it was thicker than I thought it was. So it definitely should have gone down a hook size, because this is the bloom, and looking at it, the bloom doesn't look that much thicker, but this is like my second time using Home Slim, so I will make a note to myself to use a slightly smaller hook. I should have done a gauge swatch, but here we are. So you can see this one has a nice pushback. You know, this one as well has a nice pushback. You see how quickly it's bouncing up, and then when I'm squeezing it, it's not really losing the shape of the belly. With this one, I may leave it slightly understuffed because I can see that my stitches are a little bit looser for my liking. And if I stuff it to the firmness of this one per se, it may really stretch these stitches to the point where it's gonna get a lot holier than it already is. It's showing in the camera that it's super holy, right? But I can't really see my stuffing, so I don't know if it's the light, and maybe I'm seeing more shadows than I'm actually seeing stuffing because I'm looking at it, but they don't look as tight as I usually make them. Like these look super tight. These are not really looking as tight, so I'm gonna maybe stuff it a little bit more. We're gonna risk it. Let's see. I think my issue is I need to push it down more towards the belly. Stuffing your dolls is like an art, right? You want to massage and round out massage and round out. You don't want it to look lumpy. This is why, like, I take at the beginning really big chunks and then slowly start adding smaller chunks, because, you know, it's stuffing, so it's gonna like turn into balls. So when you take really small pieces for these wider areas, it might get a little bit lumpy. It's not like you can't fix it. It's just a matter of massaging. So I'm working here. I'm pushing the stuffing down more into the belly, so we help shape it, and so we help maintain the shape. So you see I squeeze now, and the belly's not sinking in as much. So I got far ahead of myself. I should have properly layered this part and then add it at the top. Of course you can fix it, it just takes a little bit more work. So now I'm working on stuffing the top. See how I'm pushing on it and it's bouncing right back? Yeah. So it doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look like it's too holy. Again, it may just be the shade, the shadow of the ring light coming down in the camera, because I'm looking at it. I can see that they're a little loose, but I'm not really seeing any stuffing. Like on the camera, it looks like you can see stuffing. All right, I'm not gonna worry about it. All right, so I'm gonna continue working up until round 23. And at that point, we're going to do the color changes and the decreasing of the head. So I will be back there. All right, so now we're gonna start working on the cap of the head. And at this point, this is where we're going to change our colors. So usually I finished my 50 of round 21. Oh, sorry, round 22. So usually when I do color changes a handful of different ways. But in this specific one, we don't have to be super picky, because you're not really gonna be able to see any of the color changes. So we don't have to worry about it being super neat. So we're just gonna do it the way most people do it, or the common way to do it. I'm not gonna do anything crazy. But on my last single crochet of round 22, I'm not gonna finish my yarn under and pull through. I'm actually going to yarn under with the new color. So now you are switching to either whatever your leaf color is going to be with this one, or whatever your... I just lost my flower pixie. Oh, sorry. Or we're going to use the flower color of your flower pixie. So either your green if you're doing the leaf, or whichever flower you pick for the flower pixie. So I am currently working on a flower pixie, so I'm using this turquoise by Home Slim. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do, so I pulled my yarn through, and I'm gonna go ahead and just do a couple of single crochets here. And before I continue, I'm going to cut my yarn here. Wow, scissors decided. There we go. They are not scissoring today. Right, and I'm going to tie a couple of knots here. Make sure that everything is nice and secure. Make sure you don't pull this one too tight, because if you do, it's gonna really shrink this first V. So we want to make sure that we're not pulling too tight. I probably should have pulled a little bit tighter, but you know what, we will survive. So for this round, we're simply single crocheting all the way around, and we're not doing anything extra. But starting on the next round, we're going to be working on the back loops only, and I will show you what that looks like. So I'll probably speed this part through. Oh, so I just finished round 23, and what we're going to do now is we're only going to be working on the back loops only. I'm going to mark this first front loop over here, and we're going to leave this for later because we don't need it. Ooh. I'll take the stitch marker out. All right. And we're going to leave it there. So from now on, we're only going to be working on the front loops. The back loops. So you got your V's, you have this loop right here and this loop right here. Usually we work through both, but on this instance, we're only going to be working through one. And we're going to start decreasing. So just these front loops. Oh my goodness, just these back loops. You guys are probably like, you are confusing me right now. This is going to be a really short clip. I just wanted to show you guys these, what the back loops look like, just in case you didn't know. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to come back and attach the flower to these front loops, the petals or the leaves. So that's why we're working on the back loops only, and then I will meet you back, so this is round 24. I'm gonna do round 24 and then round 25, and I'll meet you back after round 25 so we can talk about eyes. Okay, so we're gonna do full transparency because I just double checked all of my work, going down, counting stitches and everything. And usually I've made a handful of these, plus there's like 2 more over here that were just different mods. So I know what I have on the pattern is correct. However, this is a different yarn than everything else. And I do say in the pattern that shifting can happen. You can have a different tension, different yarn. I think I've spoken about this before. Sometimes things shift funny. So even though it worked for all my other patterns, for all the other plushies I made, like I said, I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For some reason, these Sweet Snuggles is giving me a hard time. So I stopped at round 25. I know my work is correct, so we're gonna have to deal with it, and this is gonna be a great learning lesson because it does happen. So I'm not gonna stress about it, but I finished round 25, so we have 30 stitches right here up top, and we're going to place the eyes. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that I like to place pins to visualize where my eyes are going to go. I can't tell you how many times I have put the eyes on, they looked right, and then I put the backings on, I stuffed it, and they're like a row apart, or they're shifted off to the side, or whatever the case may be. So I like to place safety pins just because it gives me like an ease of mind. Not safety pins, sorry, sewing pins. Not today. Today it's not giving me a peace of mind because I'm not understanding what happened. Like even when I look at the stitch marker placement between these two, it's in the same place. But for some reason, when I switched over to this teal, my stitches shifted a lot. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm done talking about it. on the pattern, it states we're going to count 17 stitches from our last stitch, which is this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or this is our first stitch of round 25. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. This is going to be our 17th stitch. And next, we're going to go down 6 rounds. So what you want to do is follow the natural line of the stitches. So this being stitch 17th, we're going to naturally follow the line down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So as you can see, it is not centered. And that's okay, it happens, but we are going 6 rounds underneath. It should work. I don't know what happened or what I did. I double checked my work, everything is right. So if this happens to you, or if actually, lucky you, if yours is in the middle. Mine wasn't. Obviously, I'm very bitter about this. This has never happened to me. It's happened to me before where I've been off by a stitch, but never so significantly over to the side. I don't know what happened. Anyway, it's gonna work. The head doesn't really have any special shaping to it like the belly. I'm glad that the belly came out where it needed to, but for some reason it didn't over here, and I'm done stressing about it. So obviously, as we can tell, that is not the center of our face, and that's okay. As long as we're staying on this round, we will be okay. I'm going to place right here. That's what, let me look at it from the front real quick. And that to me looks like the center. I'm happy now. I moved like 4 stitches over. Hopefully 17 works for you. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm 6. Look, we're done talk. We're done talking about it. All right, I found my center. I'm going to now grab 2 more pins, and I'm going to count 6 stitches in each direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm looking at it again, making sure that at this point they both look even, that this middle pin is centered, and then these 2 are where they need to go. At this point, I am using the Sweet Snuggles. So I know in the pattern I have 16 millimeters for the worsted weight yarn. I'm going to use 24s for this in-between yarn, which is this the Sweet Snuggles. For blanket, I do like to use 30 millimeters because it is significantly bigger. I do like the bigger ice. And of course, you can do whatever you want to do. I don't have to tell you what to do. So here we're putting that one in. And let's not do that. I'm gonna put that one in. I'm gonna double check again. Do they look centered with this pin? Do they look like they're on the same round? Yes. I think I'm gonna look at it. If you may please, before you put your backings, before you put your backings on, you can lightly stuff the head just to kind of give you an idea. But I am actually happy with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and attach my backing. So like I said, you may have shifting, you may not have shifting. It happens. I've never had it to where I was 4 stitches off. It's always been like 1. So, you know, even though I double checked all my work, I don't know what I did. And again, it just proves hook size, yarn size, tension all play a role in the shifting of your stitches. Sometimes you have a very subtle shift and sometimes you have a more drastic shift, and it doesn't make it wrong. It just happens, and that's okay. So next I'm going to continue to work. I'm not really gonna talk much about the stuffing because we already addressed the stuffing here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish the head, and then I will meet you back so we can start the petals on the flower Pixie, and then we will work on the leaves, so the petals and the leaves, and then on this one we're gonna do just the leaves. So I will be right back. All right, moving on from my safety eye issue. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna be done bringing it up. It happens. Look at him. He came out perfect. All the stitches that need to be there are there at the top. And yeah, I am so sorry. The kids are playing Legos. But if I don't record through this, then I'm not going to be able to get any of it done. So I apologize. I'm so sorry. Mama 4. One of them being a baby. It's not as the easiest. So right now we're going to move on to face shaping. If you're using a yarn that's not a worsted weight yarn, right? So if you're using, this is the Home Slim, the Sweet Snuggles and Blanket, and this is Bloom with Parfait Chunky, I recommend to use a piece of worsted weight yarn. We are going to be putting on a lot of tension and pulling while we're doing the face shaping, so it's very important that your yarn doesn't snap. So try to find a sturdier worsted weight yarn. I guess you could use cotton too. Cotton's really sturdy. You know, definitely don't use roving yarn, or anyway, just like a very stiff yarn. The color doesn't have to match. I just match them because I'm weird like that. If you don't have a matching worsted weight yarn color, no worries, it's okay. So we are going to look at 6 different points when we are attaching, when we are face shaping. So there's going to be a point 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's going to be different than the 1. 4, we're going to go back into 1, 5, 6, and back out to 4, right? So we're going an entry point here. So we want to pick 2 spots here on the neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 points. I totally switched the numbers on you. But we're going to go in through point 1 and bring it out to point 2, right? We're going to leave a long tail. I cut way too strong of a strand. Now we're going to insert to point 3 and out to point 4. Just 1 stitch over from our point 1. Oh, we're going to... Oh no, that should be fine. So as we're pulling this yarn, we want to make sure that it's going underneath the safety eye. So pull, pull, pull. And it's underneath that safety eye. So now we're going to go back in to point 1 and out point 5. I'm going to try to keep that as close to the safety eye. Make sure that it's centered. If you go a little bit lower, it's going to give you a slightly different look, where it's going to sink in like this more. So, you know, you can play around with it with different locations of the eye. So, whoops. Let's see. Now we're going to go into point 6 and out point 4. Now there is a picture on the pattern with all the points. I probably should have looked at it to make sure that I had the same numbers. Ooh. So we don't want that. We want to go behind the eye from the top, not from the bottom. from the top. Okay, definitely way too long of a strand, so I don't need all of this. Yeah, I only needed half of what I pulled. Anyway, so this is the fun part. We're going to slowly start bringing in these eyes. So what I like to do is push down and together and pull and pull and pull and pull. Now you can make this as deep as you want or not. I'm trying to see if I have a difference between any of the dolls. I think with all of them I did go pretty deep down. I wanted this nose part to, and I mean I didn't technically put a nose, but a very defined ridge right here with all of them. This one I accidentally went a row too low on the eyes. I left it because I thought she still looked super cute. So they all kind of have the same look. I am going pretty, but if you didn't want to go, oh, here we go. This one is not as pushed in as the other ones are. So play with however you want them to look. I really like the very sunk in eyes more. So that's just me. There we go. I'm happy with that. No, it is tight. You don't want to let go. I'm gonna do that fast. There we go. Now pull on tight, and now I'm gonna double knot. All right, we are going to be super transparent today. I have never struggled with a yarn as much as I have this Sweet Snuggles. I have made stuff with Sweet Snuggles before. I think I made I made my animal, I made the bunny in Sweet Snuggles, and it, you know, it worked out perfectly. I had no issues with that yarn at all whatsoever. I did just use one yarn color, right? There's no color changes in the bunny pattern. However, with this one here today, it has been nothing but issues for me. I was frogging and remaking and frogging and remaking, and it just was not working for me. So I walked away because the stitch counts were just not working in my favor. So what I did, and I guess if you happen to have this problem where you're having a really hard time seeing those front bumps, front loops, because I went through and I counted the ones on the blanket yarn, and I absolutely had no issues. You should have 150 stitches, front loops only, from your first FLO to your last FLO. And I was just having an issue where I kept coming up with like 10 stitches short, or I was 8 stitches short. So what I did here instead is I color coded my stitch markers, and I know for the large petals is going across 9 stitches. So this is my beginning stitch. So I marked where each petal is going to end is where I counted. So 9, 9, 9, 9. You should have 6 large petals. For the medium-sized petals, they are going to be worked across 7 stitches, and you should have 8 of the medium petals. And then for the smallest ones, these are going to be worked across 5 stitches. So I marked, you know, where the 5th stitch would be, and you should have 8 small petals. So I'm hoping this works. The process is going to be the same. I was just having a really hard time working them. I do say that on the pattern, you know, as you're working along all the way up top, that they are going to be harder to see and to not accidentally work it. So let's say I make a single crochet here. Sometimes it is a possibility that it's going to drown this stitch that's right next to it. So I think that's what I did. And instead of, you know how I said I marked per section, right, the 55th and the 111th stitch, because I know that if I had worked the whole section and I ended what I needed to end, that the whole section was correct. But because I'm having such a hard time looking at my stitches, I figured if I go by petal, it might be easier, because if I have to frog, then I'm not frogging a whole section, I'm only frogging a petal. It's just because I was continuously frogging. So that's a tip that you can do. I was just having a really hard time with it and I was really struggling. So I want to be transparent. Again, this is a video aid, and if I wasn't struggling with my own pattern, you know, to show you what problems can arise, then it is what it is. So I'm going to get back to working on the petals. I'm going to finish the row 1 and then I will be back. I just wanted to make this quick disclaimer. It's just happening with this yarn where, you know, my stitches were really drowning and I had a hard time seeing it. So if you're having this problem, I recommend trying this, and I'll let you know if it works. All right, so I finished round 1 of the petals. The stitch markers definitely did help. So what I did is simply, as I reached a stitch marker, I moved it to the same stitch that I was working on. So obviously, as I was working these petals, the stitch marker signified the last stitch of the petal, but now because we're going to chain 1 and turn, now the stitch markers are going to represent the first stitch of the petal going down. I do think going down is going to be easier in this yarn, simply for the fact that you can actually see the V's clearly. I think the problem was because the FLOs looked very hidden, and I'm hoping, but just for precaution, I just kept the stitch markers in place. So we're actually gonna start and building up on the petals. We're gonna start round 2. So I already chained 1 and I'm turning, and every single time, if you remember, each petal has single crochets in the middle and 2 slit stitches at the end. Every single time we hit a slit stitch, we're gonna work just on that back loop. Just so it's easier. It's really hard to like work back into a slit stitch. You can try if you want to. You know, it just ends up being more work. It's just easier to just go on that back loop of that slit stitch, which is what I did. At this point, I'm not going to need the stitch markers anymore because there's only 2 rows. So I'm going to be removing the stitch markers as I work them. So on that first one, we're going to start with the small petals. And like I said in the pattern, anything that is in between brackets is going to be all worked on the same stitch. So for the small one, we have a slit stitch on the first stitch. And now we're going to work on a regular stitch. So we're going to do a single crochet increase. And then we're going to do 2 HDC, a picot stitch. So usually people do picots differently all the time. I simply chain 1 and I'm going to go into this front loop and into this side loop that you see right here. So there's kind of like a V forms on the side of the HDC, and that's where I'm going to slit stitch 2, and then we're going to do 1 more HDC on that same stitch, and then we're going to do a single crochet increase, and then I slit stitch on that BLO to finish off the petal. So I'm gonna do another small one just so I can show you the picot. I don't know if I'm saying it right. So this is going to be the beginning of our petal, you know, because I had to mark all those stitches. So we're gonna slit stitch to the back bump. We're going to do a single crochet increase through our regular stitches. We're going to do a half double, another half double, on the same stitch. We're going to do a picot. For me, I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to grab the front loop of the stitch of the half double, the last half double we made, and this stitch on the body of the half double crochet. Now we have like a 2 loops kind of on our hoop plus the regular one, and we're going to pull through all 3 and pull our yarn, so it's just a cute little spike. And then we're going to do another half double crochet on that same stitch. We're going to do a single crochet increase on this one, and then a slit stitch on that back loop of the previous slit stitch, and that is the end of the other petal. I'm going to continue working. The other petals work exactly the same with the picot, so I will meet you guys over when I finish. So I went ahead and I finished doing the petals. Everything worked out great. The stitch markers definitely helped to make sure that I had everything on the right place. So next we're going to work on doing the foliage around the face. So the Pixie has beautiful long viney hair. So to get that started, we are going to use 2 different pins here. And right now we're going to look at the face, find the middle place between the eyes, and kind of bring that up to where the 2 colors here meet. Because we're going to be doing a surface single crochet all the way around here. So from now on, face your doll with the flower facing you, and we're going to count 25 stitches towards the back. So I'm going to start counting towards the right. If you're left-handed, count towards the left, right? So we want to go in the direction away from this area right here, and I'll explain that in a second. But we're going to count 1, 2, 25. So that's going to be the center of the back, and this is where we're going to attach our yarn. The reason I didn't want you counting your stitches this way is because it may be a little bit hard figuring out what is what on this end. Because we worked on continuous rounds, we are going against the grain because I want to crochet with the doll facing, the flower facing this way instead of this way, just because of how I want the leaves to look. I want the leaves to look a specific way. It looked better working with the flower facing you than it did the other way around. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm gonna grab my green yarn, if I can find the end over here. And I'm going to go ahead and where the stitch marker is, I'm going to pull up a loop and chain 1. I'm gonna leave this in here just in case, but yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and on that first one, as if you're gonna do surface crochet, you're technically going through the body of that single crochet. So I'm going to chain, do a single crochet. I'm gonna go in the hole that I just used and out the next one. In on the same hole and out the next one all the way down. So that's 1, 2, 3. So I got 9 stitches going down this way. And this next one is gonna look funky. So I'm ending right here. I'm gonna go in that last hook that I made, but I'm gonna come up here. This does look like 2 stitches, but it's 1. So 10. So the reason we're paying close attention to where you are, so if you reach the point where your pin was, right, that means that you counted your stitches correctly, because we want the 25th stitch to be here and the 26th stitch to be here. That is the exact center of that. It's because we have a peak going down, and we want this peak to be centered and not off to the side. So if you've reached the safety pin and you're not at 25 stitches, that means you didn't quite do it right. This is just the area that we need to look for because of the indentation. You don't really want to add or take away stitches here, because then that's going to really shift your peak. So we want to make sure that this stays as even as possible. We want to end on our 25th stitch. It's just this one area where it looks like there's 2 stitches, but it's just one. It's just because we're shifting a whole row, so it makes it look like it's 2 stitches instead of 1, because we worked in continuous rounds. So at this point, I'm just gonna continue till I get to the end, and I'll meet you right back. All right, so I made it to the end. I have my 50 stitches. I'm simply going to join right there. So now we're going to start, we're gonna join and then chain 1. So the hair, the foliage has 2 different styles. You can either have the long vines or the leaves, and then you have the peak. So there's 3 different things happening here. So let's start with following the pattern. We're going to single crochet in the first 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to start with a vine. So for the vine, we want to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to slit stitch to the 4th back bump. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then repeat that process to the desired length. So for this vine, I actually did 10 leaves. In the pattern, I do mention you can make this as long as you want. Just keep in mind that the vine is going to shrink about half its size. So, you know, I'm kind of looking at it. It's probably going to be a little bit shorter than this, but about half. Maybe it'll be down to here. So, as you can see, these kind of curl a little bit. So that's why I say do whatever amount you want, as long as you keep in mind that it is going to shrink. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slit stitch to the center of each leaf going down. You want to keep this tight so your vines curl nicely. And then once you're done curling your vines, we're going to slit stitch on those last 2 back bumps. So that is the end of our first vine. It's about where I wanted it. I wanted her to have long ones. So on the next step, we're just going to single crochet in the next 4. And now we're going to create a leaf. For the leaf, we are going to chain 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Starting on our second back bump. So you have your first, your V, and on the back you have the 1 back bump and 2. We're going to slit stitch to the second back bump. We're going to single crochet in the next 2 back bumps, half double crochet in the next 2 back bumps, on the next back bump, we're going to do a 3-in-1 double crochet increase. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to work 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. Now we're going to be working along the opposite side of those back bumps, which are going to be your V's. So this is the back bump where we did the 3 double crochets. So on that same one, working on the opposite side, we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to half double crochet in the next 2. Sorry, yeah. Oh, that's not a half. That's a, there we go. Half double crochet in the next 2. Single crochet in the next 2. And then slit stitch on that last one. And we're going to chain 1. So your leaf should look something like this. Now we're going to be working on that chain again. But this time we're going to surface slit stitch our way down. So I'm going to insert, the yarn is going to come from underneath. So 1, so I slit stitched all the way down, surface slit stitched, and now we're going to slit stitch on the last 3 back bumps. And that's our leaf. So now I just got finished doing this vine, and we're going to move on to do the peak. So for the peak, we're going to single crochet on that next stitch, half double crochet twice, double crochet, double crochet increase, we're going to do our picot just the same way, just a chain, that front loop and that available loop on the body of the stitch that we just made, and do a slit stitch. We're going to do a double crochet increase, a double crochet on that next stitch, half double crochet in the next 2, and a single crochet on the next stitch. And that's the end of the picot. So I'm going to continue, not the picot, sorry, the peak, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and continue working on this other side, and I will meet you right back. Okay, so here's where the voiceover is gonna start, because my children's screaming just got exponentially louder. Sorry if it bothered you in the previous clips. I just tried muting it as much as I could, but it was like almost impossible. I'm also speeding up this video because there's no reason why it was as long as it was. I was doing a lot of talking, and obviously I do a lot of talking on my voiceovers as well. So all I'm doing here is I'm grabbing that long tail that we left at the end of the foliage, and I'm bringing it forward. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep the vines away from the face. So we're kind of just pinning it on that top corner of the eye so the vine kind of stays out of place. And then I'm going to point the peak down so I can kind of get an idea of where I want that part to be anchored down, because I like the way that it looks with it pointing down. I do believe it kind of gives the doll a little bit of an eyebrow. It kind of arches it a little bit, so I'm anchoring it down there. And then I'm doing the same thing on the opposite vine so it stays out of the face. Can you only just like picture your mom telling you to move your bangs? Because that was my life, and that was like the only thing that I was imagining when I was sewing these vines, was my mom yelling at me about my bangs. I laugh because I do it to my kids too. But at this point, I'm just going to grab and weave it in. And this is all for the flower pixie. Isn't she gorgeous? I hope you love her. Or him, because boys can also have long hair. So yeah, let's move on to the leafy pixie. So I went ahead and I made all the leaves for the leaf pixie, and then I realized that it's going to be really hard to see on that blanket yarn because my leafy pixie is made in blanket. So I decided for the purposes of this video that I'm going to do it in worsted. Not because making it in blanket is hard, but because you really couldn't see my stitches in the blanket yarn. So to start our leaf, we're going to make our slip knot and chain 7. Now we're going to work on our back bumps. Those are regular V's and the back bumps are in the back. And we're going to single crochet in the first 5 back bumps. We are going to do a single crochet increase on that last back bump. Now we're going to turn our work so we are looking at the opposite side of the chain that we just worked on. And from now on, and for the rest of the leaf, we're just going to be working on the back loops only. So on that first back loop, we're going to do a single crochet increase. So we don't want to work through the B, we just want to work through that loop on the back. So back loops only. So there's a single crochet increase, which is going to be followed by 3 single crochets, and a chain 2. Starting on that second chain from the hook, we are going to single crochet 4. Then we're going to do a single crochet increase, a single crochet in the next 2. Remember, we're working on the back loops only. That's what's going to give us that ridge look of a leaf. Then we're going to do a single crochet increase followed by 3 single crochets and a chain 2. We're going to turn our work, and starting on that second chain, we're going to single crochet 4. A single crochet increase, single crochet on the next 4, a single crochet increase, and we're going to finish this row with 3 single crochets and a chain 2. So now we're going to be working on side A, so we're only going to be working on 1/2 of the leaf. So to start that out, starting on that second chain, we're going to single crochet 2. We're going to slip stitch to that next BLO and chain 1 and turn our work. Then we're going to single crochet in the first 2 BLOs and chain 2 and turn our work. Starting on that second chain, we're going to do 3 single crochets. Then we're going to slip stitch on that next stitch of the base, or the next available BLO of that previous row. That would be row 8, right? The one at the bottom. Now we're going to turn our work and we're going to single crochet in the first 2 BLOs. We're going to chain 2 and turn our work. Starting on that second chain, we're going to do 3 single crochets. And then we're going to slip stitch to the next BLO on the base. Now we're going to, that was the end of the side A, so we're going to start on side B. So let's single crochet on the next 9 stitches of the base. Now we're going to chain 2 and turn our work. So this is the first row on the side B. So starting on that second chain, we're going to single crochet 2. And then we're going to slip stitch on that next back loop, chain 1 and turn our work. We're going to single crochet in the first 2 back loops, chain 2 and turn our work. We're starting on that second chain, we're going to single crochet 3. Then slip stitch on the next available BLO of the base and turn our work. We're going to single crochet in the first 2 BLOs, and chain 2, turn our work. Starting on that second stitch, we're going to single crochet in the first 3 BLOs. We're going to slip stitch to the next 2 BLOs of the base. And then we're going to single crochet on the next 4 BLOs. And that's going to be the end of side B. And now we're going to be working on the base of the leaf. So for this one, we're going to chain 1 and turn after I finish that stitch. I'm going to turn our work. We're going to start out with a single crochet increase on that first back loop, a single crochet on the next 4 BLOs, sorry, 2 BLOs, and a single crochet increase on that last BLO. And then we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and then for row 15 we're simply going to single crochet in each back loop. And that is going to be the end of the leaf. It's very simple, very straightforward at this point. I'm going to fasten off my work. I do like to make sure that when I fasten off, I do a chain 1, then cut the yarn and pull it through. And that's going to give us a knot at the end, so we make sure that that last stitch doesn't like open up. But at this point you can weave in your ends. I usually try to crochet through that first tail and then just weave in that second tail. You can try to crochet over it when you're attaching the leaf to the pixie, but I find it is just easier to weave in as I go. So next we're going to talk about how we're going to attach the leaves to the leaf pixie. Okay, so now we are ready to attach the leaves to the top of the head. So I am going to walk you through how I did that. So, let me see. So we're going to, with the legs of the doll facing you, you're going to insert your hook on that first FLO. So. And we're going to grab one of our leaves. Now the leaves are not asymmetrical really. Well, they look very OC. They're like slightly higher on one side, a little bit lower, saggier on this side. You can attach them however you want to. We're going to be doing kind of like we did with the arms, where we're working through the body and through the arm or the leaf. So we have 6 stitches here from that last round of the leaves, and those are the ones we're going to be using. So I'm going to insert my hook through both the leaf and the body. Grab my yarn, and I'm going to single crochet 6 through both. Oh, maybe I should. Well, let's give ourselves a little bit of a bigger tail. There we go. Chain 1, and now we're going to single crochet. Sorry, that was just me attaching it. Oh, what is happening here? Oh, I grabbed the tail. Silly me. Let's move the tail out of the way. All right, so we're gonna go in through the body, in through the leaf, pull out a loop, and single crochet. And you want to do that for the next 6 stitches of the body and all the stitches of the leaf. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. He wanted to come say hello. Okay. Now we're going to single crochet on just the body on those next available FLOs. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to make a tiny leaf. So I have huge leaves that are just draping around, and then just to fill the empty space between, we're going to make tiny leaves. So for this one, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Starting on that second back bump, we're going to do a slip stitch, a single crochet, and a half double crochet. And now we have to anchor it. So we're going to go through the body of that last single crochet, and we're gonna slit stitch. And now we have like a leaf. And you can get crazy with it. I think if you love plants and you know how to crochet a lot of different plants, that you know, you can really add anything you want, you know, as long as you keep in mind that you have 150 stitches on top of this head. You can do the same with the flower one. Make any flower that you want. So I'm gonna repeat the sequence one more time. We're going to single crochet in the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to grab another leaf. So I'm trying to see. See, I have the big side going on this one, so I'm gonna flip it here. Oop, like that. Yeah. Making sure you're doing it through the top. Don't do it here. Don't go through the leaf first and then the body, because this is gonna really flatten your leaf towards the body of your pixie. Now, it might not be that big of a deal when we're going along the back, but when we're going along the front, we don't really want it to fall straight on his eye. As you can see, they should like slightly curve a little bit, whichever way you're going. So that's how it's gonna kind of keep it away from his eyes. But so make sure we're putting the leaf, we're going through the body and then the leaf. So that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Whew. Okay. And now we're going to single crochet on the next 3 stitches of just the body. And then we're gonna make a leaf. So chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting on that second chain, we're going to do a slit stitch. Ooh. I lost my back bumps. Okay, a single crochet and a half double crochet, and then to anchor the leaf, we're going to go through the body of that last, we're gonna go through the body of that last single crochet, and we're gonna do a slit stitch, and then we're just gonna single crochet 3. There we go. So boom, that's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna do that for the rest of the 8 leaves. Like I said, this is what he looks like. You definitely can play around with it. The leaf does fall a little bit on his face, but you want to play around with it, as you can see here. So I did the 4 leaves going across the bottom, and then on the next round of FLOs I simply did I like went all the way around once with just all single crochets, and then eventually I did add a leaf, just so I can kind of scatter them, and so they weren't super many leaves. But I think in the future, I think I want to add more leaves, so it's more of like a full head of hair. Or you can lift it like this, I do like the way that he looks like this too, or down. I like either look. How cute. I love him. All right, so that is, I will actually show you, well, actually, I think that's all for, yeah, that's all for this one. That's what it's gonna look like afterwards. There's nothing special happening here. These are just how we attach the leaves and then how we make the filler leaves. And just gonna continue going, and this is what he's gonna look like. So yeah, this is all for the leafy pixie. And then next we're gonna work on the dumpling mod. But look at how much of a difference. It's the same hook size, just extremely thick yarn. Yay. Okay, so I'll see you next time. All right, so now we're gonna start the pleating or the folding, the braiding, the detail work of the dumpling. I'm Mongolian, and I think this is probably one of my favorite ways to fold a dumpling. It is very cute, not necessarily easy if you don't know what you're doing. So I went ahead and I stuffed the head to what I think would be right. I will say for this, a little bit less is better. I did have that issue where I wanted to stuff like I usually stuff, like super tight here, but then I had a super hard time closing or cinching, folding the head without it starting to get very holy, and it felt super tight because this is going to be very tight. We are going from 30 stitches all the way around to only 6. So we are doing a very drastic decrease, which if you want to, you can probably go down a hook size and see if that helps. But I noticed that when you overstuff, it becomes really hard and complicated to close off the dumplings. So might be easier to simply not stuff. We were looking for more of a medium level stuffing. Like this is pretty firm. I'm gonna have like a really quick kickback if I press it down. This one is gonna be a little bit slower of a kickback, but it should still be okay. So just make sure that you're pushing that stuffing down as you're working it, and don't accidentally crochet your stuffing. I've done that many times. So I usually like to keep this finger in here to make sure when I'm grabbing yarn, I'm not, grabbing stuffing. So it's kind of like a shield, a barrier between the stuffing and my yarn. So for the folds, we're going to insert our hook into that next stitch, skip 3 stitches, and we're going to come out that 4th hole. Now to kind of help you can kind of cinch this in. These stitches need to be tight. So making sure that you're holding, your tension is tight. I'm cinching here to kind of help. Oh, if I could do this properly. Yep. And then I do yarn under. So yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn under again, and pull through 2. We're going to do the same here. Onto that next stitch, skip 3, out the 4th. So you're going in from the outside and you're coming out from the inside. Cinch, hold tight, and make it create a single crochet. So again, inserting my hook into that next stitch and out that 4th stitch, pulling up a loop and making a single crochet. Oh. So we're gonna just do this all the way around. If one time you skip 3 and the next one you skipped 4, it's okay, I won't tell. Ooh, my fire alarm is going off. I'm sorry, guys. It's beeping. I need to change batteries. I ordered some batteries from Amazon, but they're gonna like take forever. So we're just waiting for those. 1, 2, 3, and on the fourth one, out. I swear, fire extinguishers will destroy me because I forget to buy batteries, and then I swear they all go out at the same time. So I had a lot of fire alarms that I need to do. So I just did my 6th pleat fold, and I'm simply going to insert my hook on that next stitch, or on that first stitch, and we're going to join. And I usually fast enough with a chain 1, I cut my yarn and then pull the tail through. Like I said, I think I overstuffed my head too much, and this all just became very holy and not very clean. So I frogged, took some of it out and played with it. So this is going to be a little bit more of a medium. It's not a super fast bounce back, but it's enough to where it's maintaining the shape that it needs to maintain. So at this point, I'm just gonna weave in my ends, or I guess I should close off that hole first. I'm gonna go in through those outer loops, going from the out, in, and then, oop, not there. I don't know what kind of stitch that's called, and then we're gonna pull. Oh, gotta do that last loop too. And then we're gonna pull, and then I'm gonna bring my yarn to the back, and we're gonna fast enough. I like to do just like 2 knots. Go very slowly so it doesn't destroy your stitches. I'm gonna go over, do 1 more knot. So come out 1 stitch, go in, go out the other hole, and before I pull through, I'm gonna pass my yarn there and lightly pull, and then I'm just gonna bring it to the opposite end and fast enough, and then squeeze to hide that tail. There we go. Hello. All right, next we're gonna work on the face, so I will meet you right back. Okay, so now we're gonna start the face embroidering detail work for the dumpling baby. And yes, so on round 21, I ask you to mark your 30th and your 31st stitch. This we're going to use as a reference point for the rest of the face. I do like to map everything out before I embroider, just to make sure that everything is where it needs to be and it's evenly distributed between stitches and everything. So I'm gonna grab a pin and I'm gonna put it between those 2 stitches, so 30 or 31, yours may be backwards, whichever one, and I'm going to take out my stitch marker. The stitch marker really was just for a reference point, kind of like I'm guessing where the center is going to be, and then I can work from there. It's just I didn't want to count stitches after I was done, so I just went ahead and marked round 21. So this is going to be the right placement when it comes to like height wise where you want it. And then now that we have the pin and everything is stuffed, you know, stitches shift, stuff moves, so this may not necessarily be your center point. And the great thing about this is the great part about using pins is you can really get an idea of where you want stuff to go. So I'm looking at it and it looks pretty even to me. You at this point, you can move it anywhere along this row that you would like to. I'm happy with that placement, so I'm not actually gonna move it. If you have to move it to what you think looks fairly centered with the center of the tummy, right? So we have a tummy, this one's flat, this is the front. So I guess we gotta make sure that you're gonna do it on the right place. So looking at it, I'm happy with this placement. It looks very centered to me, at least on my end, maybe not so much on the camera. I'm trying to look at the camera. It looks pretty centered to me, so I am happy with it. So we're gonna get started. So we're gonna map everything out. So on the pattern, it is very numbered, so I'm gonna continue using those numbers just to make sure. So we're going to place a second and a third pin on 2 stitches away from our reference point. So 1, 2, place your pin, and then 1, 2, place your pin. Now we're going to grab 2 more pins, and so this is going to be pin number 4 and 5, and this one is going to go 2 stitches away from this one. So 1, 2, and we're going to go up around. We're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to count 1, 2, and up around. There we go. And that's going to be the corner of our eyes. This is our mouth, eyes. Now we're going to grab stitch marker number 6 and 7, and these are going to go 4 stitches away from this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to place our pin, and then on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, and place our pin. Now I didn't number this next set of pins, but this is simply going to go between these 2. There is 4 stitches, so right on the middle, so there's 2 in either direction, and we're going to go up 1 round, and that's going to give us the curve of our eye. And we're going to do the same here. We're going to go bam. Now we have the face a little bit more formed. Double check that everything still looks centered and even before you go ahead and attach the mouthpiece and embroider the eyes. And I'm looking at my tail, and now I'm thinking, I don't know if I cut this long enough. We'll see. Fingers crossed. I did go ahead and weave in the beginning tail of this one, just so I don't have to worry about it later. Just got it done. So yes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach the mouth. So here is the mouth, and we have 4 chains. We're going to pin the first chain and the last chain to these outer 2 pins, and we're just going to use that center one to kind of make sure that it's centered. So again, these are your reference point. Your pins are always your reference points. Right here, and then I'm gonna place a pin right there. So now play with it. My mouth looks a little funky. There we go. Maybe make this a little bit lower right there. Try to maybe point this out a little bit more. I'm gonna just go ahead and pin the rest of the mouth down. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and just sew the mouth in place. All right, that was not my best sewing job. I'm not really good at sewing. I don't mind doing it, but I never know. I play around with techniques all the time, and I haven't found one that I love the mostest. Some people are so good at sewing, you can't even tell that those pieces are sewn in, but yeah. So I just got done doing the mouth, and I'm gonna show you how to do the eye. So with this tail, we're going to go in and out that first corner pin. Now we're gonna go from the top, we're gonna create a straight line here, and then we're gonna come out this third pin up here. So don't pull too tight. What we're gonna do is we're going to go underneath. We're going to grab that yarn, or you know, that stitch we just made. We're going to grab it. We're going to lightly pull it. Right, so I came out this stitch, I'm going under it, and I'm going to go back in that same stitch. And I'm going to come out to the other eye over here. And we're going to go very slowly. Make sure that, you know, it's grabbing the center of the eye, and gonna pull. There you go. Don't pull too hard, because then it's gonna sink it in that one spot. You kind of want to leave it a little bit loose like that, and that's gonna slightly curve that stitch that we made. So I'll show you one more time. So we came out that first stitch, which is, what was that? Oh, this is pin number 5. We're gonna go into pin number 7, and we're gonna come out that center pin. Right, here we go. Now we're going to bring our needle underneath this line right here, and we're going to go back in to that center pin and bring our yarn to the back. There we go. And then lightly pull. As you're pulling, make sure that that loop we created is centered. And slowly pull, and don't pull too hard. There we go. And that is it for the bow baby. Look at how cute he looks.